Hello, everybody. So I'm here with Nicholas. He's a polyglot and he believes in translation. And today I'm going to interview him to know more about the methodology he's using and for you to check if this could bring you anything to your studies. The interview is going to be entirely in English, so feel free to turn on the captions in case you need it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, Nicholas. So, what can you tell us about yourself?
About myself, about my language learning journey.
No, just about your personal life or personal stuff. Where are you from? Where do you
Okay,
live?
yes. I'm Brazilian. I live in the south of Brazil, like all the way to the south. I'm Rio Grande do Sul. So as you can see, like it's pretty cold here. I'm wearing like a lot of clothes. And yeah, I study engineering, second year. And I've been studying English for 7 years now, about 7 years, yeah.
And how many languages can you speak?
I speak Portuguese, that is my native language. I speak English. French and Spanish, I speak like I fluently because I focus more on understanding. So I can understand French and Spanish, like I can watch TV shows. That was actually my goal. Like my goal, even in English, like my goal in the beginning was just to watch TV shows, to watch videos, and stuff like that. Was never actually to speak, but then later I decided to start speaking. But my goal was to watch content. I love watching YouTube videos, educational videos, and stuff like that. Reading books. I read a lot of books, and that's the main purpose of learning language for me is to consume material, right? So to learn, to watch videos, stuff like that.
So, did you use Duolingo to study English from the beginning? And do you still use it?
I used Duolingo for just 2 weeks for English. I just like tested it, and kind of liked I kind of liked it, but after 2 weeks, I transitioned to translating posts on my own. So I just like some blog posts about subjects I liked, and I started translating using Google Translate, and I would see like the words over and over again, and like the words I had already looked up, I didn't have to look it up anymore. So my vocabulary started to increase, and I started like studying instructions. And then like 4 months later, I transitioned to watching TV shows in English with subtitles in English. And then I wasn't using like translation anymore. I wasn't using it. So I started learning by context, and pretty soon I stopped like this thing of translating things in my head, because before I started watching TV shows, I was translating things in my head. I had this problem, but once I started watching TV shows, this problem went away pretty quickly.
So, it took like less than a year for you to stop translating.
Yeah, like 4 months that I did translation just for 4 months, and then I started watching TV shows in English with subtitles in English for like 6 months before I quitted like subtitles completely and started watching English without subtitles. So it was a total of 10 months from start to watching like without subtitles.
So, you consider translation a good thing.
To get started as a stepping stone,
All right.
but not
And
like not forever. Not like you're not gonna just translate forever.
what about those
I
people
like to.
who use Duolingo forever?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that, right? I just get started with translation with Duolingo just to get a feel of the language. So I don't know. Let's say I want to learn Japanese. I think it's gonna be my next language, and like I don't have no idea. I have no idea of anything in Japanese, right? So I'm gonna use translation to like clear the fog. and to get to an understanding, and then I continue without translation. After I get a feel for the language, I get a foundation, right? The translation is like the map, is not the territory. I heard this somewhere that like translating is not like understanding, but it helps you to start understanding. And I
Okay.
used for now I use like Duolingo for German, and this time I really used Duolingo, so I got to level 1 on every skill. And I actually started with Duolingo just to test it out, the app, right? Because I didn't know if it was effective. So I said like, let's test it out and see if it's effective. And then like I tried to watch something in German like with subtitles or reading, of course. Um, and I couldn't understand much. And after getting to level 1 on each level of Duolingo, I could understand much more. I already had like a foundation of the language. Like I could understand some the structures and the vocabulary. But at this point, like continuing to do Duolingo wasn't going to help much. So right now I'm just watching things in German. I'm just watching like TV shows for beginners and like YouTube videos, either for beginners or not for beginners. I'm like mixing it up. Or sometimes I use translation. I choose a YouTube video, for example, and I translate some words that I don't know, and then I watch the video like with subtitles, without subtitles. I play with this, right? So to right now I'm understanding like German with subtitles in German, but when I don't use subtitles, I'm having a hard time to understand like uh, spoken German. And but it's getting better. I'm training my ear to start understanding more. You know,
And you said that after level 1, you think Duolingo wouldn't help you much. Would it be bad for your learning?
I don't know if it's going to be bad, but how can I say? I actually learned this way of learning, let's say, with Mairo Vergara. I watched his like YouTube videos and his blog. So when I wanted to learn English, I Google it, and one of the first websites I found was like Mairo Vergara's old blog. I don't know if you know it, and he had some tips about input based learning. So I I'm pretty much used to this way of learning. Just have a lot of input first. And so Duolingo asks you for like translation from your target language and a little bit of translation to your target language. So I start translating just from the target language, not to the target language, because I don't think it's useful. Is it's useful in the beginning to like start translating to your target language, because Duolingo like requires perfection, right? So I was asked to translate something to German, and I didn't know because I had no idea of anything in German, and I would have to know where to put like nicht, the word like for a negative in German, and I had no idea where to put it. So I thought that was pretty useless, right? So let's see. I used the free trial, the 14 days free trial from Duolingo, to just get it over as quickly as possible. And then I would make two mistakes on purpose, just not to have to translate to German. Because if you make two mistakes, Duolingo don't require you to translate to German, right? So I was just required to translate from German, and was what I wanted. And
All
level
right.
two, there's much more translating to the target language. That's why I don't like level two in the beginning. Maybe after you're intermediate, you could have some use with level two, but in the beginning, I don't see the point. And I'm using actually like right now a reverse translation to the target language for Spanish and French. I didn't use it for English because I only started to speak English 1 year and 3 months after I started learning because my goal wasn't to speak, so I wasn't like in a hurry. And then I had so much input that the first time was pretty easy. I didn't need any translation whatsoever. But for Spanish and French, I didn't have so much input. So right now I like I don't have enough vocabulary to express myself in French, for example. So in Spanish, I'm a little bit better in Spanish than French, but at the same time, I don't feel so comfortable speaking Spanish and French. Like I feel a lack of vocabulary, and then I use some translation to the target language or to Spanish and to French to learn how to speak, right? But I didn't use this for English.
So, do you consider yourself a Vergara student?
I didn't like enroll in his course. I never paid him any money. So, but I use his free tips on YouTube and on his blog. And
All
I
right.
didn't follow like how can I say exactly what he recommended. Right. I kind of understood his principles like of input based learning. I did it. He recommends using Anki, spaced repetition system for learning English. I didn't use it for learning English. Later, I tried for French, and it's pretty good. But it's not like essential, but it's a good way as well, right? If you can use Anki, you may not use Anki. It's up to you. And like as Stephen Kaufman, the polyglot says, do what's fun, right? So he says if you find Anki fun, use Anki. If you find like boring, don't use it because having fun is important in the process.
It makes sense. I kind of disagree on the input thing, but it's all related to your goal, as you said, because I believe
Yes,
you're gonna learn much faster if you do more output instead of just
like
doing
speaking
input.
from day one.
Yeah, like that. And
Yes,
translating to the target language, not from the target language. Like, oh, I want to know how to say this. So that's okay to translate to the language you want to say. But I don't feel like
yes,
okay for you to translate from the language to yours because I feel like it's going to cause an addiction that's very hard to get rid of. You are gifted, I gotta say, because once you start learning a language and you become fluent in that, it's very easy for you to get fluent in a second language. I know because when I travel abroad and I have to talk in Spanish, for example, I just need 3 days and I'm able to speak Spanish. But after a while, I get back to ground zero, you know, like when I return to Brazil, I just totally forget
yes.
it. But when people are trying to learn their first language, this translating thing is an addiction. Like they become subordinate bilinguals. They subordinate everything to Portuguese, and they don't get rid of that. Um, so because you learned English and you did a good job at that, it helps you when you try to get rid of translations. But do you think for somebody who is learning their first language,
Yeah,
if they
but English
translate
was
a lot, they will
but English
be
was my
able to
first
transition?
but English was my first foreign language. So I use translation for English as well. And I use a lot of translation in this like 3 months. And yeah, for me it worked. And once you start watching TV shows and videos, it's hard to translate because like it's so fast. When you're like watching something like a fast-paced spoken English, it's hard for you to translate. So your brain like adapts. So the thing is, like, you start with translation, but once you start watching videos, your brain adapts and you stop translating. Something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Could you speak a little of your language you decided to speak?
Speaking in the language.
Yeah, you said you can speak French and German. You said you're
Yes,
learning, right?
yes. Like Spanish and French, I don't speak fluently. I just because I more understand the language, so I didn't practice much those languages, so I don't speak. I cannot speak about every topic, right? And German, it's not a language that I know because I don't even understand spoken German, so I couldn't say it's a language I know, right?
Okay. And have you ever been
But yeah,
to
I can
another
speak a little bit.
country?
Entonces, yo hablo español un poquito. No,
Oh,
actually,
good.
only to Uruguay, but like Uruguay, it's very close to here. It's like 30 kilometers. It's very close to here. So I live in the border with Uruguay, but here there are no many Spanish speakers because it's in the border. So they speak like Portuñol or something like that, you know. Yo hablo un poco de un poquito de español. Yo entiendo yo veo telenovelas, me encanta, yo entiendo el español, pero cuando se trata de hablar, no sé si estoy hablando correctamente. A veces pienso que puedo decir algunas palabras en portugués porque es muy parecido. Cuando no sé cómo decir alguna cosa, yo puedo hablar una palabra en portugués y esperar que exista en español. Pero sí, entiendo todo y puedo hablar un tantito, puedo ser comprendido. En français, je peux parler un petit peu comme ça aussi. Et le français, c'est un petit peu différent de le portugais, si, euh, con l'espagnol. Mais je peux parler à propos de un petit peu de choses comme ça, mais pas beaucoup de choses parce que je pratique pas mon français, je parle pas beaucoup de temps, mais j'écoute et je comprends le français, je regarde la série télévisée, les choses comme ça. Et c'est génial parce que ça me plaît, regarder les choses en la langue étrangère. Et ça, c'est super en fait. So that's it. I have a friend like this, but
That's interesting. I
I don't
never
speak
studied French before.
fluently. You know.
I never studied French before, but I understood what you said. You said like you can speak a little of French, but you can understand it a lot better,
Yes.
especially when you watch TV and you think French is a little
Yes.
more distant from Portuguese and Spanish, isn't it right?
Yes. Yes. But like Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Italian are all Romance language, so they all share some similarities, right? And it's easier to learn for you, for me as a Brazilian. It's easier to learn Italian, French, and Spanish than other language, and it's more similar as well. And like I understand pretty much everything in French and Spanish. I can watch TV and videos, but like I don't practice my speaking very much, so I don't speak like fluently. But if I just practice a little bit more for a month or two, maybe I could speak fluently. I don't know how much time it would take, but yeah, I think so. And German, like I could speak like a few things in German, but I don't even understand spoken German. Ich spreche Deutsch, aber ich spreche nichts sehr gut. But I also memorized a thing in German just to have fun. I sometimes memorize some phrases to have fun. I memorized it's very well spoken because I memorized it, but it's not like fluent speech because I'm not producing content from scratch. So ich spreche Portugiesisch, das ist meine Muttersprache und ich spreche auch Englisch, Französisch, Spanisch und jetzt lerne Deutsch. So I just memorized this for fun. And like yesterday or Wednesday, I don't know any Japanese. Like I didn't study Japanese, but I was talking to a woman from Japan in English. So I just memorized a phrase in Japanese to say to her. It was like this. Let me remember. Nicolas des hijimashita. And she understood. It was so cool.
All right. What does it
It means
mean?
like it means I'm Nicholas. Nice to meet you. So it's cool. But I don't speak it in Japanese. I just memorize this to have fun. But in the future, I plan to learn Japanese. I think it's an awesome language.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you, Nicholas, and the channel is open for you whenever you want to participate on our meetings, and also whenever
Okay.
you want to record videos again. It's always open for you, okay? This is a public
Okay.
space. I'm not like, oh, I'm the owner of the channel and etc. We preach here that people should learn with no translation, but we also have to see the different perspectives. I myself, I'm one of the biggest criticizers of the Vergara method, so it's really good to see
Okay.
somebody who is able to speak the language using the method, because I haven't heard of
Yes.
anybody who really did it before. So it's good to see somebody, actually doing that,
Yes.
especially because he
Oh, can
has
I?
so many students. So it's really good. Go ahead, Nicholas. You can say something. What were you gonna say?
Yes. Can I ask something? Like I'm used to learn with translation, so if I'm gonna learn new language, I'm gonna use translation probably. But I'm curious about like new methods of learning. I don't see how I can learn without translation. For me, it's something really different because I'm used to learning this way, right? So yeah, I'm open to learning about new methods. But could you learn like Japanese, for example, or Korean, a very different language, like without any translation?
Yes, you could. When I was in the United States, for example, I had a Japanese friend, and we were able to communicate like small
Okay.
talk only in Japanese. I don't remember that anymore. But the idea was we didn't
Yes.
have any translation. We just had to speak basic things and kind of amplify the comfort zone. So he started with like
Yes.
konnichiwa. And then I started repeating, and then we started having this small talk. So bringing this to English would be something like, hi, my name is Anderson. And then you would say, oh,
Yes.
hi, my name is Nicholas. Oh, I'm 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so that's the idea when you have a partner. When you have no partner is a little different. I tried that with Italian. It worked enough for me to be able to pass an interview there, but again,
Okay.
I didn't practice again, so it's in the past. But what I did was
Yes.
I took a TV show, and then I started watching this TV show in Italian with no subtitles at all. And my goal was to identify words I knew. So, for example, he started saying buongiorno, and then I had to repeat, oh, buongiorno. And then I would
Mm-hmm.
hear the whole TV show without understanding a thing. But after 2 or 3 episodes, I was able to repeat Principessa and Buonasera and many other words. After,
Buongiorno, principessa. It was like the movie A Good Life. How is it? Life
oh,
is
that in
beautiful.
that movie he says that too, but it was something
Okay.
like Seven Deadly Sins. I think that's it. So
Okay.
after a whole season, I was able to repeat like 30%. Only
Okay.
by watching. But it was an active learning, and it was also based on output, because I was all the time
Yes.
repeating, repeating, repeating.
Yes.
And the more I listened, the more I repeated, until there was a time that I was able to repeat
Yes.
a lot. And it was good because when I had to talk to somebody, the words were there, like magic.
Yes.
It
Yes. I didn't
works.
use translation. Like I didn't use translation like from the target language for Spanish because Spanish is so similar to Portuguese. I didn't have to. I just started watching soap operas as well, right? So for Spanish, I didn't use it. I'm just using right now some translation to the target language. But yeah, so I for French I used much less translation than I did for English because I think like Spanish and even Italian French are easier than English, German, and even of course Japanese, Mandarin. But yeah, for Italian too, if I would learn Italian, I think I'm gonna learn Italian in the future. I think I won't use translations because I don't quite similar. Italian's language, Portuguese, Spanish, and French. So there are even similar words with Italian, French, and Italian, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. There are so much that I already know that it's gonna be easier. Like in French, eat is manger. In Italian, it's mangiare. So it's there are a lot of similarities. But like for a language like Korean, Japanese, Mandarin, I think it's much more difficult to learn. For example, without translation. I know a guy. I read this book. I don't know if you know it. Fluent Forever.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, this guy is against translation as well, right? So he uses images to learn. So he like search for the word. But with images, you can learn just like nouns, maybe adjectives, maybe verbs. But you cannot know like cannot learn like words like preposition, negation, like but, why, because. This is hard to learn with image, right?
I think with image you can replace the Duolingo. That's why I
Yes.
always recommend for people to, instead of using Duolingo, use drops. So with image you can replace the Duolingo process and even some translation process, because that's what you said. I use translation to grow vocabulary. So once you have all the nouns, the prepositions will come as you listen to native speaking.
Yeah, that would be. I never test this, but I actually started using images for German, but I'm kind of lazy, so I just dropped it and I started using translation again because
There are some
I'm used
apps
to it.
that
But
help you with
because
this
you have to
imaging.
search for the image, it's much more work.
No, you can use drops. Have you ever heard of it?
Okay,
You can use drops, and then you don't need to
drops.
search for
No,
it.
actually, I heard in your interview with the other girl with a girl about Duolingo.
Yeah, drops shows you the image and says the pronunciation of that image in English or in the other language you want to learn. And then you don't need to search for the image.
Okay.
It's there. It's you're just passively
Oh, cool.
receiving the image. It's pretty good.
Hmm, that's interesting. Yes,
Another way
and I
is
recommend
to
that.
use Google Lens. Do you know Google Lens?
No, not actually.
Google Lens is a very good app. You can just put the camera towards something you want to know the name, and then Google Lens will tell you the name of that.
Yes. Oh, that sounds fancy. That sounds nice. Yes. So I recommend a talk there is on YouTube. It's called 10 Things Polyglots Do Differently. And she talks about a lot of polyglots, famous polyglots, and how they all learn language differently. So some of them use translation, some of them use a lot of translation, some of them don't use any translation at all, and some like speak from day one. Some do like silent period and wait for speaking. Like Stephen Kaufman, I think he has a silent period. Like Benny Lewis, he has this philosophy of speaking from day one. And I think I never spoke from day one. It was never my thing because I learned with Mayra Vergara and Steve Kaufman. Yeah, I knew Steve Kaufman by Mayra Vergara. So Mayra Vergara talked about Luca Lampariello and Steve Kaufman. So I then looked for them, and that's how I met them. And so Mayra Vergara and Steve Kaufman and Stephen Krashen are like against like this of speaking from day one. So they have like all this silent period. But Benny Lewis, for example, he has this speaking from day one. And I met a girl in a challenge that I'm doing right now, and a Brazilian girl who speaks English quite well, and she like she's been studying for less than a year, and I was impressed with her English. Like when I was studying for a year, I didn't have an English as good as hers, so I was impressed. So I'm more open to this idea of speaking from day one. And I think it's a good idea. although it's more difficult, of course, because when you have a lot of input, it's much easier to speak than when you start from zero. But yeah, I think maybe very effective to speak from day one. Okay.
So let me ask you one more question. How long did it take until you were able to hold a conversation in English?
Well, as I said, I only tried to speak English 1 year and 3 months after I started. So and then I was able to speak very comfortably, have conversations about every topic. And but I didn't try to speak before, so I couldn't know, right?
All right. Well, thank you, Nicholas. It was a pleasure. I'll release this video as soon
Yes.
as possible. And as I said, feel free to come to our meetings and to be again here in the channel, okay?
Okay, thanks. It was a nice conversation.
Bye. See you.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for watching. It was a great pleasure to make this interview, and it's always good to have a different point of view. And that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave it a comment if you like it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.